how your therapy data is protected and what you need to know about the privacy in my practice, process notes, and progress notes. Hi, I'm Sandra Mazili, founder of Inner Action Counselling. Visit www.inneractioncounselling.co.uk. This video is the inside scoop on security in my practice, how I protect your data. I'm accountable to the Information Commissioner's Office, that's the ICO, as a data holder. I take security very, very seriously. So I'm talking about your data in this video. It's fairly long. I'm dividing your data into 3 tracks: intake, ongoing, and aftermath. So the intake refers to before we ever meet and have sessions and all of that as you're coming into my practice, ongoing as you're having sessions, and then aftermath. After we finish working together and we've parted our separate ways, I still hold data about you for a certain amount of time. So I'm going to talk about all those wonderful things. Just a quick side note about AI, that's artificial intelligence, in case you weren't aware of it. I don't use AI for any client-related activities. I've heard on the grapevine about therapists using it to help create their notes or letters or reports, transcribing sessions even. I'm appalled. I've no other words for that, to be perfectly honest. I'd never do that. I don't do it, and I never will. I don't use AI in session or outside sessions for anything relating to clients. The only activities I use AI for is for public domain content creation. So that's social media, blog posts, videos like this. So AI came up with the title for this video. That's an example of the use of AI. I wrote the rest of it because I was like, what am I calling this thing? So you can read my AI policy on the website, inneractioncounselling.co.uk. It's free to download it if you want to delve deeply into it. So that's enough of the AI tirade. Back to your information and first contact. So you might email me or leave a message on my practice phone. The information I get will be copied, so I'll write it down in a Word document and password protect that document, and you now have a folder on my computer that is encrypted. Each subsequent file I have on you will have its own individual password within this encrypted folder. 1 folder per client. It might sound a bit convoluted, but nothing is too much when it comes to security. So we've done first contact. You send me a copy of your registration form and a signed copy of your contract. These will also be password protected and put in your client folder. Remember, individual passwords for each file. I keep a copy. You're welcome to keep a copy yourself. I suggest you treat your documents as carefully as I do, but I'm not telling you how to store your own stuff. How you store your contract and registration form is up to you. I can't protect the data you hold about yourself. I can only protect the data I hold. Now, referral form, because clients can refer themselves to me directly through email or leaving a message and so on, or on to me either directly, so just giving them my website link, or partially filling in a referral form and sending that to me. It has partial client information with consent given, I might add, and it contains information including age, gender, and reasons for seeking help. And the reasons bit is the bulk of the information. The professional's name, the practice name, contact details for the professional, their role, whether they're a GP, social prescriber, health coach, social worker, like regardless their role, and their own contact details, so an email address or whatever they're using to send this to me. That is emailed to me. I download it, password protect it, I delete the email. I acknowledge receipt, from the person referring to me, and then I delete that email. They are then going to send me an email with the rest of the information as sort of personal information. It's sent separately. So the person's name and contact detail. And I can get the rest of the information from the person themselves. That's if they decide to follow this up with me. And again, that email is deleted after the fact. I've copied the details and put them in a password-protected document. If I'm phoning, it will always be through a speaking device because I can't protect information sent through texting. Any emails back and forth are kept until no longer needed and archived securely, i.e. password protected file. So that's intake for you. Ongoing, so sessions. They take place over the phone or online through video, synchronous live chat, or asynchronous email. I do not record sessions. I've already ranted about AI, so I don't use it in sessions. And I expect the same from my clients. If you've got AI Companion or other sorts of transcribing tools or avatars, please switch them off before coming to the session with me. I'll say it again. I can't protect the data you hold or the data you decide to share with other parties, consciously or otherwise. So do whatever you please in your own time, in sessions, all that kind of thing has to be shut down or disabled or whatever the technical term is. Live chats are not saved after the fact. So when we end a text-based session in synchronous live chat, it gets deleted, not stored in my cloud. Email sessions are carried out through a secure email address. So I have one, and I talk you through how to get one yourself if you haven't already got one. So I use Proton Mail. There's Hushmail. There's a host of them. So the sessions take place through continuous email thread in real time. So email sessions take place over a 50-minute time period, like everyone else's sessions. After the email session, I make my notes as I normally would in other forms of session, and then I delete that thread. I suggest you do the same thing as my client. Make the notes that you want to make. So anything you want to remember, any pearls of wisdom that you came up with, and then delete the thread. The side note about email addresses. I have a number of them, as you've probably gathered, including my personal one. I volunteer with Cruise still, so I've got one for them. I've got an email address for my website, hello@inneractioncounselling.co.uk if you want to contact me. And I've got one for other counselling issues like subscriptions to directories and various other bits and pieces. And as discussed, I have a secure email address for asynchronous sessions. The only email address synced to multiple devices, apart from my computer, phone, tablet, blah, 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 is my personal email address. No other address can be accessed through other devices, apart from this laptop I'm sitting at. So we've covered intake before we work together, ongoing for when we're having sessions, and now the aftermath is my notes. All notes are password protected. Different passwords for each file as already discussed. Two kinds of notes are kept: process and progress. Process notes are deleted 3 months after our work together ends, whether we're having sessions for 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years. After we've had our final session, process notes are held for 3 months, then deleted. Progress notes are stored for 7 years. It's compulsory to keep them for 6 years. So that's my ethical body and insurance provider and all those things. 6 years. And I keep them for a buffer year in case there's any issues like a court case, etc., etc. You know what they say, plan for the worst and hope for the best. So now we've cleared that up. What's the difference between these two kinds of notes? Process notes, I'll deal with that first. These are my own private subjective notes for me, reflective musings, as it were. Maybe questions for my supervisor or internal thoughts and processes. Often I share it with my clients, especially if I'm making notes simultaneously during a session. I might make a link between what they've said now and something they mentioned a couple of weeks ago and share that there and then. So you're never left with me maybe talking and scratching away and you're like, she's saying one thing, what is she writing down there? Okay, right? That's never going to happen. You are included in what I write. And I include my own clients and get them to write their own notes as well, because it's a useful skill to have. Especially if they've said something themselves that's absolutely amazing. Not, it's way more valuable if they're actually able to remember that. Now, some people might choose to, it's not often. Some people are like, well, I can just memorize that. That hasn't happened yet. So far, people will write down their pearls. Progress notes are very different and way more methodical and far less content. I'm going to use the acronym SOAP. There's lots of others, but this is my personal favorite. It stands for Subjective, Objective, Assessment, Plan. I'll repeat that. Subjective, Objective, Assessment, Plan. So briefly, it's what, why, and how. So 2 kinds of what, as in the information, why that is, and how, as in what we're going to do about it. So, out of order, we'll do objective first. Objective is the objective or observable information. You're coming into the session, how do you present to me? Are you, slumped over or upright, in tears, or yawning your way through the session, or shouting at me? Observable. I can't really interpret that. Either you're slurring your words or crying, or you're not. Observable information. Stuff that anybody can see or hear or observe in however way they do that, regardless of who they are. Observable information. Subjective is the stuff that I pick up according to my interpretation. Let's say we've been talking about a row you've had, and I might discern a level of distance from you from the person you've been rowing with. That's my interpretation. I could be wrong about that, and I might bring that up with you and we could have a bit of a chat about it. So again, you're never left with like, what is she thinking about exactly? I share everything and hide nothing. But there might be a one-liner in the progress notes. So in the objective bits, there's time, date, session length. Again, there's no interpretation. Either it's a 50-minute session or it isn't. If it's 45 minutes, then that's what I'd put. There's no quibbling. If it's information that can be quibbled, then it goes into the subjective bit. And then 1 or 2 lines maybe about the session content, which would go into the subjective bit. So let's continue on the theme of our row that you may have had with your partner. I might say something like, argument in family discussed. That's literally all that would be in there, not the ins and outs of the row you've had. So we've done subjective and objective. Assessment. Assessment is the why, and this is another subjective aspect, and your own feelings as the client may play into that. So I might decide that this is because of the bereavement that's happened recently, and you might feel it's because there were neighbors keeping mobile line. So that goes in. And I mean one line, not on and on. Plan. What's the plan of action? We may review something we've talked about before. So let's say I've given you an experiment to work on. We might review that, and I might give you an experiment to play with during the week. So let's say you're afraid of spiders, and we might play with graded exposure around that. And so I might put that in the plan section. So looking at line drawings of spiders for next week. That doesn't mean you actually go through with it, but that's the plan that we have. So one-liners. And these are the notes which are kept for 7 years. And I don't take insurance yet, but when and if I do, insurance companies, EAPs may or may not need to see periodic reports on their clients. So if you're using your health insurance to pay for sessions, it won't cost you anything, it costs the insurer. So they kind of like to know if whatever it is they're paying for is actually working. So that's the kind of instance where you might see progress notes being sent, not my own private rantings and ravings, but this kind of one line here, one line there, session time, session date, presentation, one liner about what's discussed, and subjective information, assessment and plan. Okay. So nothing extraordinary is shared in those instances. If there were a court case and notes were demanded of me, this is the notes that would appear. And even then, it would have to be a court order. No one could just walk in and ask me, yeah, give me my notes on such and such. Not going to happen. Court order or nothing. Or it might be a subject access request from you, my client. You'd have to formally ask me for it. So I hope that clears any issues up around security, especially AI. Do not get me started on that again. We've covered progress notes, process notes, intake forms and emails and contracts, notes in session, how sessions are conducted, whether it's emails. We've covered that I don't use texts. So that's the end of this inside scoop on security in my practice. Like and subscribe for more interesting content. Until next time, take care and goodbye for now.